That's it? Ready to go? All right, let's go to sleep. All right, so how are you guys? And at home? Hope everything is okay. And so thank you very much, first of all, to Nico, or threw a hook into the deep, deep ocean. It came up with a small fish. And so my name is Kartsun or Karma Tsöndrü, or my other name is Yaki. Many people know me by the name Yaki. And I was born in Israel, grew up in Israel. And for the past 20 years, I think, I've been living in Australia. So I came to India to begin with in 1997. That was my first trip to India. And the reason that I came to India to begin with was because it was half the price of the ticket in comparison with Colombia. So 1.5 years earlier, let's say around 1996, I was traveling as a backpacker in Central and South America. I was completely taken by the different cultures, and I was speaking Spanish and learning Spanish. I was reading a lot of South American literature. So I really wanted to go to Colombia. And one year I had 4 weeks holidays, and I went to see my travel agent. It was before you can get cheap flights online on the internet. So I went to see my travel agent, and it was around $1,600 for just the flight ticket to Colombia. So now it doesn't sound like a lot of money, and I guess that I could afford it. But almost 30 years ago, it was quite a lot of money for just 1 month. So the travel agent said India is half the price. So I bought a flight ticket to India, and I knew nothing about India. Everything seemed to be Buddhism and Hinduism, and all the rest seemed to be pretty much the same to me. I was totally ignorant. And I traveled to India in around, I think it was August, and I don't do well in hot weather. So I went to, arrived at Delhi, and then I went to Leh. That was great. I was making my way down. I met a girl that said that she was going to Dharamsala, so I thought to myself, yeah, let's check it out. I went to Dharamsala, and I met a couple of monks that inspired some interest. I had no big questions about the universe or existence or my life and so forth. I was just kind of a bloody ignorant traveler, backpacker. And so then I bought a couple of books. One of them was His Honesty Dalai Lama's Freedom in Exile, and the other one was The Way to Freedom, that presented basic Buddhist values and teachings. And I was intrigued. And so I was traveling in India and Nepal later on. But when I left India, when I was like, it was just way too hot for me. Hot and pretty intense. And so I thought to myself, so can the volume be increased? Maybe I can sit closer to the, or maybe this. All right. How about now? Is it better? Better. Awesome.
Better.
Thank you very much. And so, when I left India, I thought to myself, I don't think that I'll ever come back to India, because it was just way too hot and intense. But then 11 months after that, I came back to India happy as ever, happy to be back. Anyway, I went back home, and I discovered that an old childhood friend of mine was organizing a visit of Thupten Chodron, an American nun in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. And I had the time and I had the ability to attend those teachings. So this is how it started, kind of bit by bit, slowly. And I started visiting and coming back to India almost every year for teachings with His Honesty Dalai Lama, or taking some teachings from the Tibetan Library of Works and Archives at McLeodganj, Dharamsala. And when I was 30, I left my job as a software engineer, and I thought that I'll spend a few months here in India and then go back home and get a new contract. But I met a girl and we fell in love, and she was from Ireland, so I stayed on in India. We stayed together. And then I met someone that later on became one of my main teachers. And he spoke only Tibetan. And I thought that if I learned Tibetan, I'd be able to not only understand him better, but also hear teaching straight in Tibetan rather than going through the English translation. So again, ahead of time, it wasn't like it wasn't a decision that I really considered really heavily and deeply. I just kind of thought, I'll do it. So I stayed in India altogether for 4 years and was studying Tibetan at Dharamsala. And then I was invited to go to Australia to take up the position of a translator, interpreter for Chenrezig Institute in Queensland. And again, Australia was never on the map for me. I thought I'll take a couple of years break from India, be in Australia for a couple of years, check it out, also get some experience interpreting, and then come back to India and continue my study. But I found out that the FPMT study programs were pretty incredible, particularly for someone like me that up until then I was studying really haphazardly, topic here and topic there, without being able to really put it together to consolidate everything into a complete understanding. And I found that working not only as an interpreter, but also trying to work out the study program, the spiritual program to my needs. So I asked the Geshes to teach basically what I needed to know, worked really well. So I stayed on and stayed on and stayed on. And I ended up staying in Australia at that center, Chenrezig Institute, for 18 years. Yeah. So it was good. It was incredible. Most of it, living in the Buddhist center is not always easy, but you don't live here, do you? No. All right. So maybe it's quite easy. Yeah. But it was, I'm really grateful for all the opportunities that I have had along the way. And so that's me in a nutshell. And what I thought of doing today was to speak about the 4 immeasurables, the 4 immeasurable thoughts. But before we start, before I start, let's do a brief meditation, just calming our mind, calming our thoughts. I guess some of you have just come back from work, or same for the people at home. And so normally what I do at the beginning of teaching sessions or my own private meditation session is spend, first of all, a few minutes on shamatha meditation or karma-body meditation. The way that I normally start my meditation is making sure that my body is totally relaxed, totally at ease. A relaxed body can support also a relaxed mind. So the most important thing is to begin with, is to learn how to calm down, how to relax. If you happen to fall asleep, that's also completely okay. At least you become a little bit relaxed. So first of all, make sure that I have a relaxed body. It's good to keep the body upright, but not rigid, right? So it doesn't have to be intense physical posture. If you keep your back straight, Mingyur Rinpoche normally says loosely straight. That's a really good way of looking at that. And then I turn my attention to the breathing process and count a round of 21 breaths. So each breath consists of breathing out, then transitioning to breathing in, and then transitioning to breathing out. So you can think about it as 4 components, 4 parts of a breath, but also you can keep it simple as just breathing in or breathing out and breathing in. So I do it for 21 times in my own personal meditation practice. And if I find that my mind is still a little bit edgy, I go for another round until I feel that I'm ready to go. And if I'm not ready to go, I sometimes just take a break, drink a glass of water, and it works out. And so we'll do it together. And then I'm wondering, do you normally start sessions with refuge and bodhicitta? Okay. All right. So we're going to keep it informal. So just going to think after that of correcting our motivation with just maybe opening our mind wanting to listen to maybe points that will be helpful to us in our life, not only to us, but also to the people around us. Hopefully helping to form better relationship, better communication skills with ourselves and the people around us. So we'll do it together, but first thing first, let's find a posture that works for us. Again, it doesn't have to be, don't be too rigid with your posture, just sit in whatever way works for you. And then if you want to close your eyes, that's completely okay. Or if you want to keep them open, that's also okay. And take 2 or 3 deep breaths. And we're going to scan our body from the toes all the way up to the crown. And if you find any point in your body that is a little bit tensed, uncomfortable, try to see if you can, with your mind, create some space and relaxation. Space and relaxation. Starting with our toes and the feet. And going up to our legs, the shins, the knees, the thighs. And if you feel any sense of discomfort or tension, gently with your mind lean into it. And if it helps, you can try to release it with an out breath. And moving up to our abdomen, where we sometimes hold on to tension or emotions. So again, gently create space in your abdomen. Just relax. And moving up to the upper part of our body, making sure that our chest is open without changing our breath, without forcing it. So if our breath is shallow, let it be. Or if you're breathing heavily, that's also okay. And loosen your shoulders. Let them drop. And also soften your palms and the arms. And move up to the face. Make sure that there is no tension, that you hold in your jaws, the meeting point between the two jaws. And relax your cheeks and soften your eyes. And your forehead. And become aware of the body as a whole, hopefully more relaxed. and turning our attention to the breathing cycle, maintaining mindfulness that remembers to follow the breath, and vigilance that monitors our mind and checks that it's still following the breath for 21 rounds. And if your mind gets scattered, that's okay. Try to find the balance between being too tight and too loose for 21 breaths. And in correcting our motivation at the beginning of our session today, thinking that I'm going to spend the next hour or so, as much as I can, opening my mind and my heart, making space for attitudes of love and compassion, an attitude of joy and equanimity, so that I can become more in tune with those around me. Create better ways of relating to others. And in so doing, working on my mental well-being, creating causes for happiness and well-being. And if you want to take it further on to Buddhist practice, if you see yourself as Buddhist, thinking that I want to create the framework of ethical behavior, which is based on love and compassion and equanimity. All right. So let's start. So what I thought of speaking of today is the topic of the four immeasurables. Now, when we follow the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, we follow it in a Mahayana way. And so what is making us Buddhists in general, I'll start with that, and I'm not going to make it too religious, too Buddhist, so I'm not going to kind of Bible bash you all the way. But when we look at it from a kind of more Buddhist perspective, when the way that we become Buddhists is through deciding in our heart that the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha are the things that we rely upon in order to develop inequalities, in order to make our mind perfect, in order to become free from limitations. And so we have different ways of wording it. We say that in order to free ourselves from fear, in order to free ourselves from the ocean of samsara, in order to free ourselves from all limitations. We have different ways of phrasing it, but basically, we want to create a perfect mind. A mind that can be of perfect use, not only for others, but also for ourselves. In order to do so, we rely upon the Buddha as the teacher. The Dharma is the method that the Buddha offered to us, but mainly the development of inequalities that we develop in our own mind. And we also rely upon the Sangha, mainly spiritual teachers that for us represent the values that we want to embody in our own mind. We are looking up to them, we want to emulate whatever they're doing so that we can develop those inequalities in our own minds. And so that's what makes us Buddhists. Now, when you look at the meditation of the four immeasurables, it is common to all Buddhist traditions. In the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, we normally meditate on the four immeasurables together with love, compassion, and mainly bodhicitta as a way of enriching our bodhicitta, making it stronger and stronger. But it's not that the meditation on the four immeasurables is just a Mahayana thing. In fact, all Buddhist traditions meditate on the four immeasurables. Not only do they meditate on the four immeasurables in general, it is an absolutely necessary meditation in order to become free from samsara. But also, if you look at the four immeasurables, not just from a strictly speaking Buddhist perspective, but I think that if you're a follower of another tradition, another religion, you can definitely use the meditation on the four immeasurables in order to enrich whatever you're doing in your tradition. But also, if you're following no tradition whatsoever, no religion whatsoever, to create a better way of relating to others, a way that is based on love and compassion and equanimity, you can still practice this meditation and really develop inequalities or become a better person. And so this meditation is available, I think, to so many different people, but I think that when you look at it from a Mahayana perspective, and the Tibetan Buddhist tradition is a Mahayana tradition, then you have, I think, maybe greater perspective or greater arguments, bigger perspective that you can use in order to develop this attitude of love and compassion to others. And so these four immeasurables are called, first of all, immeasurable love, then immeasurable compassion, immeasurable joy, and then immeasurable equanimity. And we often also recite it either at the beginning of teachings or beginning of a meditation session, normally in conjunction with the development of bodhicitta. And so are you familiar with the word bodhicitta? Not that much. All right, so bodhicitta. So bodhicitta is the aspiration or the wish to become Buddha, to be of greater benefits to all living beings without exception. An attitude that is based on compassion, compassion that recognizes that not only we suffer in different ways, sentient beings suffer in different ways, we suffer in different ways because we create causes for suffering, and there is a possibility for us to be completely free from the cause of suffering. So based on this compassionate attitude that is wishing oneself, but also others, to be free from suffering, we then think that if only I were to develop my mind to be perfect, to embody all possible qualities, and have the potential to do that. I have the potential to develop my mind in an unlimited way, limitlessly. If I were to do so, I'd be able to reach out to a great number of living beings and find ways to benefit them. And so there are different ways of benefiting others, of being of help to others. So I've been talking to people that we're doing some relief work, conflict resolution work, working in order to eliminate poverty, different types of poverty, working in the field of medicine, and so on and so forth. So we could be of practical help to others. But really, from a Buddhist perspective, the best way to be of benefit to others is to teach others how to free their own mind from all limitations, to teach others how to develop, ultimately, to an utmost extent, loving kindness and compassion and generosity and ethics and patience and wisdom. To teach others how to do it would be to give them the means to liberate their own mind from all limitations. And so if we want to be able to do so, we have to perfect our mind. If our mind is still limited, we'll have limited ways of reaching others. If we develop our mind to its utmost extent, and we have the potential to do so, we'll be able to also to be of maximum benefit to others. And so often in our tradition, the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, we then combine together the meditation on bodhicitta, the wish to become Buddha in order to be of benefit to others, with then meditating on the four immeasurables, enhancing our love and compassion, joy and equanimity to others. But then I think that when you look at some practices, you find that rather than starting with meditating first of love, then compassion, then joy, and finally equanimity, sometimes we begin with equanimity. I think that maybe, I wanted to start with equanimity because it works better for me. Like for my thing, the way that I look at this practice, first off, if I develop equanimity in my mind, in my heart, it's easier to develop love and compassion and so forth. So let's start with that. Let's start with immeasurable equanimity. So normally what we think of when we develop immeasurable equanimity is may all sentient beings, immeasurable sentient beings, have equanimity, free of a sense of partiality that is affected by anger or attachment, anger to some and attachment to others, holding some as being very far from us. We don't want them. We don't want to be in their company. We don't want to be near to them. We don't want to even think of them. Versus attachment that cannot let go of the people that are close to our heart. And so long as our mind is partial, which is holding on to this division of people around us, not only people, let's say living beings around us, into some are my friends, some are my enemies, and of course, in between, there are loads of strangers, infinite strangers. So long as my mind is making that division of everyone around me, for that long, it'd be difficult to develop this genuine sense of love and compassion for everyone. And so there are different ways of working on reducing the type of partiality that we have to others. So we begin with, first off, recognizing our own attitude. The one that is closest to our heart, let's say, the one that we know so intimately, is we ourselves. And when we look at what we do every day as we wake up in the morning, all the different things that we do throughout the day, all the things that we do when we come back home from work, all the way to going down to sleep, and even when we look at what happens to us in our dream, we can see that there is this driving force all the time to be happy, to be free from pain or suffering. And now the word happiness and suffering are a little bit complicated in English or in other, let's say, some of the languages that I know, because they are more limited than sukha and dukkha in Indian language, or dungel and dewa in Tibetan language. In English, we normally speak of everyone wants to be happy and no one wants to suffer.
But then when we look at the meaning of the words in, let's start with Sanskrit language, sukha is happiness and dukkha is suffering. And they contain so many different levels of physical and mental experiences which are not encompassed to that great degree, which is speaking of happiness and suffering in English. And so first of all, on a physical level, we want to be comfortable. We want to be well, right? We want to experience pleasure. We don't want to experience sickness or a kind of disturbance or a state in which our body is completely run down. We want things to work for us physically. We want to be free from pain. We want to be free from danger. We want to be free from fear. So this is where we start to look at what's happening to us on a mental level. Mentally, we want to be happy. We want to be free from suffering, but mental happiness and suffering are really complex in a sense that mentally we want to be well. It doesn't mean that at any given time we will sit with a smile on our face like we're really brimming with happiness, but we want to have a state of mind that is quiet, that is quiescent, that is serene, and there is an oozing sense of well-being, so that even if something drastic happens to us outside, we'll still have the mental resources to deal with that. We'll still be resilient. We'll still be resourceful. We'll still find ways to develop perspective and not succumb to utter sense of helplessness or despair. So in that sense, we want to be happy. We want to be free from suffering, from pain, from fear. We want to be free from mental limitations. We want to be satisfied. So then when we think of what the meaning is of mental happiness, for example, then it's not just kind of like brimming with happiness. I think that it also involves with a deep level of satisfaction. Satisfaction, feeling that your life counts for something, that it has a meaning. Do you agree that if you have that, then your life would be happy? Not necessarily kind of every bit of your life, every moment of the day would be kind of oozing happiness, but your mind would be solid and healthy. Do you agree? And so when we look at the different things that we do throughout the day, I think that we can see that directly and indirectly, they're all the time motivated, pushed by this sense of, I want to be well. I want to be free from suffering. I want to be free from discomfort. I want to be free from a sense of dissatisfaction. I want to find meaning. And although we don't think about it like that, we don't utter the words or speak about it in that way, we can see that it manifests in the different things that we do, even in a very kind of benign, minute way. We move around, we shift positions, we have conversations with others, we switch on the televisions, we listen to a podcast, we do all those different simple things throughout the day. And really, when you look at what is the thing that is pushing it all the time, is that sense that I want to find something that will take away some mental unhappiness, some mental discomfort, and will give me a sense of satisfaction, happiness, and so on and so forth. And so we start with that. We recognize that this is the thread that connects all the different actions that we take throughout the day, every day of our life. And with those actions, we always think, me or I want to be happy. I want to have a life of meaning. I want to be free from suffering, and so on and so forth. And so then when we start to look at people around us, we, like for example, for most of you here, I met today for the first time, apart from Nico, who I know for maybe a decade, more or less. The majority of you I met today for the first time, and it seems that we're complete strangers to each other. We don't know much about our background, our family situation, how our childhood was like, what we're doing today, what we're doing last year, and so on and so forth. In that sense, we're complete strangers. But still, when we think of what's happening inside, there's so much commonality to all of us, in that each and every one of us thinks I, and each and every one of us is motivated by that strong, that pulsating motivation of seeking happiness and well-being, and not wanting a life to mean nothing, to have no meaning or no satisfaction, not wanting to have pain. And so when we then start to open our mind or our heart to think of what would be, for example, the experience of Nico or all the other people here in the room, although I don't know you, I can still think that your individual sense of self, your subjective sense of self, is pretty close to the things that I feel. Sometimes maybe to a different degree. We all have our own stories, the things that bug us or the things that contribute to happiness and well-being. But really, when we think of the inner feeling or sensation, we can think that if I extend the sense of self, thinking of me or I, Nico also thinks of me or I, and each and every one of you is thinking in the same way, in seeking happiness and well-being and wanting to be free from pain. And so we think that when we think of equanimity, we think that since everyone is seeking happiness and well-being, why do I then prefer only the people that are close to my heart to have happiness and well-being, and I don't care about so many others? And with the people that I dislike, if they don't get happiness and well-being, that's great. If they get a little bit of pain or dissatisfaction, if the reputation is going to be tarnished, why not? That's going to be pretty cool. No, but then when we think of actually everyone around us, we can see that inside they feel exactly like me. So why do I have to go to hold on to that rigid classification of those who are close to me, those who are far from me, and so many people in between? But also this rigid classification of close ones and those who are far away from me changes. From a Buddhist perspective, maybe not all of us come from the same disposition. I know I did not grow up as Buddhist. I did not grow up thinking that there are past and future lives. But over the years, I started thinking of what the Buddhist tradition speaks of, the existence of past and future lifetimes. And bit by bit, I started to maybe open my mind to the possibility of having come from previous life, and also this lifetime not being the only one, but then upon death, my mind will continue on and will be reborn again in a new body. And so from a Buddhist perspective, thinking of the many lifetimes that I've already lived, but also the many lifetimes that I'm yet to live. In this lifetime, I was born to parents that took care of me. So I'm surrounded by good friends and people that care for me. I was helped by so many different people. I hold them close to my heart. But also in previous life, it is very likely that I was born to parents. I don't know who they were. There are people that have good recollections or some recollections from past lifetimes. I don't have any of it. Let alone not being able to remember my past lifetime. Sometimes I don't even remember what I had for breakfast. So I don't have any recollection from past lifetimes. But then, if they do exist, I was born to parents. I had a community or circle of friends and contacts that helped me survive. They contributed a great deal to my well-being, and also the life before that, and the one that preceded that, and so on and so forth. And so there are countless living beings that have helped me before. I don't remember them. And it is also possible that in this life, they are complete strangers to me. And even more so, it is possible that in this lifetime, they are harming me. From a Buddhist perspective, in Buddhist terminology, we call them enemies, but they don't have to be those arch enemies. It could be someone that is either bugging me or making me uncomfortable, someone near, someone far. But when you think about it from the perspective of past and future lifetimes, we're changing our relationships all the time through myriad lifetimes. So why should I care only for one group of people, which is quite limited, and neglect a great group of others, and even become hostile to a small group of people? Let alone when we think about it in terms of past and future lifetimes. Even in this lifetime, we've changed positions. I mean, I can remember people from my past that I really disliked, and they became friends. Or I can remember someone being a close friend of mine, and then our relationship completely broke down and we became hateful of each other. I mean, it doesn't happen that much now. I mean, I'm now in my mid-50s, so I hope that with my advanced age, but also with my Buddhist background, I'll be able to overcome being angry or hateful and so forth. But still, now we go through the motions in life, and sometimes people that are close to our heart, family members, even a partner, things happen in our relationship and we do not care for each other anymore. So our situation changes in this lifetime as well. I remember, by the way, that there was one guy I used to work with a guy in my early 20s, and I just didn't like them. I didn't like him for no obvious reason. Just, I don't know what I didn't like about that guy. His personal appearance or the way that he spoke or just kind of his vibe, just had a deep sense of dislike to that person. And then a few years later, we found ourselves in the same Buddhist group. And then, we've been doing, each one of us have been, following basically this Tibetan Buddhist path, and we ended up, living in different places. But when I think about it now, I feel that there's so much more in common between us. It's not kind of someone that I dislike, someone that I feel connected with. And so also our relationship changed in this life. So if I hold on to this rigid classification of these are the people that are close to my heart, these are the people that I dislike, and countless others, what's the point? And so I think that everyone is just like me, friends, enemies, and strangers. We're all seeking meanings and well-being and happiness. And so may we be happy. May we be free from suffering. And so that is basically that sense of equanimity. So it's not stopping to care about everyone equally, but thinking that it is not logical, not completely logical, to hold on in a very rigid way to that classification, just to care for a small group of people. I want to open my heart to be able to care equally for everyone. So that's that sense of equanimity. So how do you feel? Does it make sense, or does it sound like a fantastical, irrational way of thinking?
Makes sense.
Any objections? Like,
I'll wait for it to the end.
all right. Okay, you can put your foot down and say, I'm not going to do it. All right. And so really when we think of immeasurable equanimity, we think may immeasurable living beings, may all sentient beings find that sense of equanimity. And again, I think that it's a really important point to think that the kind of attitude that we want to have is to care for everyone equally. It's not to stop caring about everyone equally, but to really have that deep sense of care for everyone. And it needs to start with becoming equanimous. And so it's pretty much a thing that when we speak about it amongst us, and when I speak about it, I recognize that I haven't developed that quality as kind of a deep quality that is coming from the bottom of my heart. It's still work in progress. But then when you have the chance to meet really great spiritual teachers, great lamas, and since I've been working with the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, or being within the Tibetan Buddhist tradition mainly, that's, you can say, the main access that I have. So I've met His Holiness the Dalai Lama in the past, not necessarily one-on-one, but been to his teachings, saw him interacting with others. I do coordination with Taisito Rinpoche that visited Tushita Center a few times in the past. I've worked with some other teachers as a translator, so I can recognize the quality of equanimity in the minds of others. And really, I think that rather than becoming distant from others with a sense of I'm equanimous, I don't get involved with the life of others, they become so much more alive in wanting to take care of everyone around them, friends, enemies, or strangers, particularly when you meet with people like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, that for us, embodies those qualities to an utmost perfection. You get a sense that when you see him one-on-one or in a small group, you're the only person that matters for him in the world. When I say only, maybe only is not the right word since we're speaking of equanimity, but he's kind of currently, when you're standing in front of him, he's deeply involved with your welfare and well-being, although he knows nothing about your past and so forth. So that's a quality that I want to embody. That's a quality that I want to develop in my own mind, which is currently a bit limited, but I can do it. I mean, people like His Holiness the Dalai Lama or Taisito Rinpoche and so forth, they don't have a secret ingredient that makes it possible for them to develop the quality which is missing from my mind. I mean, the starting point is pretty much the same. If I give my mind the ideal conditions for flourishing, for developing, I'll be able to do it myself. I'm absolutely confident that it is possible for me to do it. And so with immeasurable equanimity, we think, may immeasurable living beings, may all living beings abide in equanimity, which is free from holding some as close to us, others as being distant for us, holding others with a sense of partiality, with anger and attachment, when everyone have a sense of equanimity. So not only we ourselves, but also when we understand what equanimity means, we want to wish everyone to have that sense of equanimity. And really, when we think of this idea of seeking peace and well-being in the world, it seems that currently it is very difficult to think of this utopic situation where everyone is going to live happily with others. But really, if we want to promote peace and understanding and harmony in communities, it has to be based on equanimity. It has to be based on a lack of division of friends, enemies, and strangers, but understanding the basic, not only wish, but also the basic right of everyone being happy, the right to be happy and the right to be free from suffering. But also together with that, we also recognize that not only we are equal in terms of seeking happiness and well-being, but we also equal in the sense that we're seeking a happiness and we're not really sure in our ability to identify precisely what the right causes are for happiness and well-being. We also don't identify really precisely what the causes for suffering is, so we get it completely wrong. Now we're chasing after the cause of happiness, and sometimes we create more causes for suffering rather than causes for genuine happiness. We want to avoid suffering, we create more causes for suffering. We want to be happy, we destroy the causes of our own happiness. The great Indian master Shantideva spoke about it in his text, the Bodhisattva Charya Avatara, the Bodhisattva way of life. And he said that really when we look at the way that we work as living beings, and although we want to be happy and we want to be free from suffering, we deliberately chase after suffering and we destroy the causes of our own happiness. And this is all happening due to our own ignorance. And so this is also something that we can add to in our contemplation of equanimity. We all, you can say, in the same boat. And so then when we start with equanimity, we can build up from equanimity to think of immeasurable love. And so the definition of love, the description of love from a Buddhist perspective is quite specific. It's somewhat different, not completely different, but somewhat different to the way that we speak about love in a in an ordinary sense. So when we look at love from a Buddhist perspective, and the type of love is called in Sanskrit metta, we think, may everyone, or may the other, be happy. May they have the causes for happiness. And so often when we speak about love in a general sense, when we love another person, be it a parent, a child, our brothers and sister, a partner, and so forth, the type of love that we have is, of course, involved with thinking that may they be well, may they have happiness and well-being, but it's also involved with a sense of self-interest. Like, they make me happy. They make me happy. They make me secure. They give meaning to my life. So long as they serve that function, may they be happy. If it doesn't work anymore, then I don't love them anymore. Of course, sometimes we still think that may they be happy, but we don't really think that I love that person still. So from a Buddhist perspective, when we think of love, it is really the genuine sense that may they be happy, may they have the cause for happiness. It's actually, I've had it, I had it so many times in the past for my teachers. When you have kids and you have that overflowing sense of love and care, unconditional love and care for your child, for a small baby, you can get a sense of this unconditional love. May others be happy, may others have happiness, and because of happiness that we want to extend to everyone else. And so I remember that when I was growing up, getting to my teens, I started to develop that sense of my parents being too old, they don't understand me, we're the new generation, they're the old generation, they don't know much about the world, with that sense of a little bit looking down on my parents. Then at some point when I moved out and moved to the big city, I thought it's so nice to be living by myself with some flatmates and have parties in the big city and blah blah. Thinking that my parents are too old to live a life like that. But then my brother and sister started to procreate. They started to have babies, and then all my friends started to have babies, and I started to look at the sense of love and care that went into the raising of a small baby. And I thought to myself, my parents once upon a time were like that. I can't remember that, but it was exactly that sense of unconditional love, wanting me at every single moment to be protected, to be free from sickness, to be happy, and so forth. They provided me day and night with all the things that were necessary for my upbringing. I can't remember most of it, but when I look at people around me, I think that my parents were just like that. And when you think of your parents, you can think that they were like that. Or when you look at friends and family members and so forth, you can first of all get a sense that it is possible to have that unconditional love, to love someone else without thinking that I will love them so long as they make me happy. Of course, it doesn't mean that things will never go wrong in a certain type of relationship. They can, but still there is a potential in our mind to develop unconditional love, because that's in general what happens in parenthood. We have experienced that. That's what happens around us in our society, but not only around us in our human society. You can see manifestation of that, examples of that also in other life forms with animals and so forth. So it is possible to do that. We have the seed in our mind for developing the sense of love and care for others. And so we think, may all living beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. But then when we start to then look at happiness and the cause of happiness, I think that, at least when you think about it from a Buddhist perspective, I think that there are different forms of happiness. To begin with, of course, in a very simple way, we can think of happiness manifesting in our everyday life. So may everyone be physically well, having resources, having conditions for flourishing. May everyone have enough food. May everyone enjoy good relationship. May they find meaning in their life, and so on and so forth. So we can think of different ways, different things that people need in order to become happy. But then when we wish them to find happiness, we want to wish them to find genuine sense of happiness. Not just temporary sense of happiness, but genuine, everlasting, deep sense of happiness. So then when I think about it from a Buddhist perspective, I can think about it first of all, may everyone find a type of birth that is suitable for mental development, for spiritual development. May their life not be limited by the circumstances they have around them. From a Buddhist perspective, the causes for finding such a birth is practicing ethics, being an ethical person. And being an ethical person doesn't have to be viewed as a really strict, dry, boring spiritual practice in which your actions are completely limited, as if you kind of find yourself all of a sudden in a box, imprisoned by a sort of ethics. It can be actually quite alive, in which you think that I don't want to, for example, I don't want to harm others, and therefore I should abstain as much as I can from killing. I can abstain as much as I can from stealing, from sexual misconduct, from lying, from divisive speech, from speaking harshly to others, from having those types of conversations which give rise to painful states of mind in my mind, but also in the minds of others. When we speak of divisions, when we dig out faults in others, when we become critical of others, when we are involved in a sense of divisive speech, we create those circumstances in which our mind and the minds of others become agitated. May we be free from that. Then also being free from covetousness, being free from sense of malice, wanting to harm others directly or indirectly. And so from a Buddhist perspective, practicing ethics, which abstains from this, is the very foundation for finding a good state of rebirth, in which you have the foundation for mental development. But also on top of that, when you think about it, at least for me in a more kind of strict Buddhist way, I can think that may they also find whatever is needed for them for spiritual development. From a Buddhist perspective, if someone has a Buddhist affinity, affiliation, disposition, may they find the right teacher for them. May they find the circumstances, the conditions for their spiritual development. May they have enough space to go for teaching. May they have enough space for meditations. May their life be conducive for mental development. That's in a very kind of general sense. But also when I think about it more, I think that may they also find deep causes for happiness. So may they develop in the mind the seek to live, the wish that is seeking to live the samsaric cycle of birth and death. We call it in the Buddhist tradition renunciation. But the word renunciation sounds, to me, sounds a little bit Christian. You become renounced, or you can renounce chocolate cake, or you can renounce dairy products. So when I look at the way that it was rendered into Tibetan language, the word for renunciation in Tibetan is ngenjung, which means that you become absolutely determined to live cyclic existence once you recognize that it is a faulty state in which we get born and then we die, and we get born again and then we die again, and in between we go through aging and sickness and looking for something and not being able to find it, and coming across again and again with things that cause us discomfort, and again we are separated from things which cause us pleasure. And we do it all over again and again, from life to life. So when we think of the faults in the mechanism of samsara, we see that it is, this mechanism is based on karma, which means the actions that we take, but also the states of mind that motivate them: anger, attachment, ignorance, and so forth. And so developing the wish to be free from that cycle in which we do not control it. Our mind is under the control of anger, attachment, and so forth, and we create more and more causes for birth in samsara. Developing the wish to emerge from that is a key factor leading us to a state of lasting happiness. So getting out of samsara is not going somewhere else. It's not like lying on a beach at Goa or on an island in Thailand and having cocktails and so on and so forth. That's not nirvana. Nirvana or freedom is a state of mind which is completely liberated from all afflictive emotions, from anger, attachment, and so forth. So a mind here can be either a samsaric mind, which has no control, or a mind that is completely free from samsara, a mind that has control, a mind that is full of wisdom, a mind that is absolutely determined, for example, to be of benefit to others. And so that's a cause for happiness. But also together with that, we also need wisdom. So wishing others to have the causes for happiness. May they develop renunciation. May they develop wisdom. May they develop love, compassion. May they practice the 6 perfections, which are generosity and ethics and patience and joyous effort and concentration and wisdom. May they find all the causes that do not only provide them with better states of happiness in their life, but also is leading them step after step to a state of complete fulfillment of the potential of our mind. Developing a mind that is completely free, but also completely in control, a mind that has no limitation whatsoever. And so I'm saying that because when we think of may everyone have happiness and the cause of happiness, of course, we don't want to wish others to have causes for happiness which are not really conducive. In a sense that if someone wants to go on a bender, do you know what going on a bender is? That's pretty Australian. It's like, drinking, one drink after another and getting drunk like quite quickly. So, you go on a bender during the weekend, so if someone wants to go on a bender because it makes them happy, we don't have to wish them to have the causes for happiness in that sense. No, we don't have to wish them to have like 6 packs of beer or 12 packs or whatever. So basically what I'm trying to say is that we want to be completely logical and correct in our wishing for others to be happy, to have the right causes for happiness, not to wish them to have whatever they want or whatever they need, because sometimes what people want and need, what I want, what I wish for myself, sometimes is not really helpful. I'm addicted to chocolates and to cakes and sweets and so forth. I've just done a blood test at Delhi and I was told that I should really curb it, should lose weight and so forth. So wishing others to have the cause for happiness is not like wishing others to have whatever they wish or want, whatever their attachment wants them to have, but really to wish them to have the genuine sense of, or the real causes for happiness and flourishing in their life. So that's immeasurable love. And then immeasurable compassion is the flip side of the coin. So we can say that when we wish directly for others to be happy, indirectly what we wish for them is to be free from suffering. When we directly wish for someone to be free from suffering, indirectly what we wish them is to be happy. And so immeasurable compassion. Compassion is, from a Buddhist perspective, is to wish that everyone else, that others, be free from suffering and also the cause of suffering. So again, the word for suffering in Buddhist terminology has a lot of meaning. So first of all, beginning with a physical level. So suffering manifests as, being sick, being uncomfortable, our body is run down, physically you don't feel quite well. There are different levels of physical discomfort or unwellness. But then the things that matters more than our body is our mind. Because sometimes it seems that a physical situation is totally hunky-dory, it's good. Our mind is in a state of despair, so it doesn't matter how well we're doing physically, or even how well the conditions are around us. If our mind is unhappy, we'll be miserable. In a similar way, I think that if our situation is not that great, if we're sick, if we are impoverished, or if we are undergoing certain challenges in our life, but our mind is resilient, our mind is happy, we have that sense of confidence, we have meaning in our life in one way or another, even though our surrounding or our body might be difficult, we can still survive, we can still thrive. And so suffering, mental suffering, is much greater than the physical suffering, can be much greater than the physical suffering that we experience. So, of course, when we speak of mental suffering, we can speak of fear or depression, a sense of melancholy, not having meaning to our life, and so on and so forth. But also more, when we look at what's happening to us on a mental level, anger is a mind that is in pain. Attachment is a mind that has so much thirstiness in it. Sometimes we don't recognize how thirsty a mind becomes when it is so attached to something. We have, of course, things that we are slightly attached to, just a little bit, and we have that idea that if only I get that, I'll be able to find some happiness and satisfaction. But there are things that are really big in our life, like, for example, I want to have a relationship, I want to have a good job, I want to make a name for myself, I want to have good reputation, I want to have this and that and this and that. And when we look at the mind that is involved with kind of those wishes and wants, it's often also involved with a sense of thirst, as if even if there's going to be an ocean in front of us, it's not going to be enough. We're still going to remain thirsty. It's more difficult to recognize that. And I guess that it's not present in all the forms of attachment that we have, but sometimes it manifests in that psychotic way of, I want to have it all. It doesn't matter what the cost is, I want to have it all. And so pride also is mind that is, you can say, that is in pain, and jealousy and other afflictive states of mind are also states of mind that are painful. So I think that if you think of, for example, of anger, I think that we all recognize that anger is not a pleasant state of mind. Not only it manifests in that kind of hurtful state in our mind, but also our body is not comfortable when we become angry, when we have hatred operating in our mind. And one of the teachers I used to work with said that if there was a product on the market that would be capable of removing anger or hatred once and for all from our mind, it is likely that people would be lining up day and night for the product that would eliminate anger. If there was an operation, had it been an operation, a procedure in which we could get rid of anger and hatred completely, all of us would opt for that, I think. No one wants to be hateful or angry in a kind of irrational way. Sometimes we say that anger is the only way that we can change a situation. If there is a situation that is unjust, that is not right, only if you become angry about it, you can change it. But the Buddhist definition of anger is wanting to harm someone. It's not simply being upset. You can be upset about a certain situation, feeling that this is not right, this is not just. Someone is being harmed, someone is being maligned, someone is being discriminated. I need to change it. And it's okay to have that state of mind and think that I need to do something for the sake of that person because it's not right. But it doesn't have to be involved with wanting to harm them. That's anger, wanting to harm someone. And that is a painful state of mind. And so wishing others to be free from suffering, So wishing them to be free from, first of all, those simple physical and mental states, which are painful, sense of discomfort, dissatisfaction, and so forth. But we go deeper than that. Wanting others to be free from types of birth, which are painful. Imagine being born, into a situation where your life is being threatened all the time, where it's a day-to-day survival process, where you're constantly being attacked, or you don't have enough to really survive till tomorrow. So may everyone be free from those really terrible circumstances, from that type of suffering. But really what matters for us from a Buddhist perspective is mainly the causes that give rise to such states. And from a Buddhist perspective, they have to do with karma, which means actions that we take, but even more so, the motivations that promote those actions. And the motivations are afflictive states of mind. And the three root one, what we call the three poisons, are anger, attachment, and ignorance. And so when I think, may everyone be freed from suffering, really the deepest level would be, may everyone be free from anger, attachment, and ignorance. Particularly, may everyone be free from ignorance. And there's a potential, all of us have this potential possibility at some point breaking free from the ignorance that we have in our mind. The potential doesn't have to become fully manifest now, but it's still there. Like, for example, now I was living in Israel in my early 20s before I came across the Buddhist tradition. So I can say that the potential for breaking free from suffering in a way that the Buddha laid out, following the Buddhist tradition, the potential is there in my mind, but I didn't have the other conducive conditions for that potential to flourish. At some point, by strict crazy sense of luck, I came across the Buddha Dharma. From a Buddhist perspective, probably I shouldn't call it luck, it's the karma playing out. But anyway, I came across Buddhism, I came across spiritual teachers. It was the right time in my life where my mind was open. This is what I wanted to do. So then now this potential to develop wisdom that can lead the way for breaking free from samsara is more strongly manifest, definitely in comparison with my 20s, but there's still a long way to go with my mental development. So may everyone be free from this sense of ignorance. May they be free from all the things that inhibit spiritual or mental development. Does it sound logical? Any objection to everyone being free from suffering? All right. And so the last one is immeasurable joy. It's called immeasurable joy. It's a kind of sympathetic joy where you want everyone not only to be happy in general, but to find a state of happiness which is devoid of sorrow or devoid of suffering. So from a, again, strictly Buddhist perspective, what we're striving at, what we want to attain is the state of liberation. And a state of liberation is a state in which we have eliminated all the causes for suffering together with its causes. And so no longer suffering is present, but also since we've eliminated the causes for suffering, suffering will not occur again in the future. And so basically we can remain with that state of happiness without occurrences of suffering. And again, the word happiness, as I said before, doesn't mean necessarily that we will be sitting in a hammock somewhere and with a smile on our face be completely happy for the rest of our life. It's with that sense of oozing well-being. Our mind is completely well, without feeling angry, without that sense of thirst, without condescending, without having jealousy, with having full wisdom, but also with having love and compassion and open heart towards everyone around us. Being able to reach out and just take meaningful actions for the sake of others. So having that sense of joy without a feeling of sorrow, sadness, or suffering. So that's on a kind of, you can say, ultimate level or final level. But I think that probably we can find also some maybe more simple ways of having happiness without sorrow in our life to a certain degree. Like, for example, finding meaning in our life. When you find meaning in your life, whatever brings you meaning, it doesn't have to be in a strictly speaking a Buddhist sense, but you can have a type of job that is that you find meaningful, and you might have struggles and difficulties on a daily basis, but you don't lose sight of what you're doing. You still find that it's fulfilling, that it gives meaning to your life, that you have working relationships with others, and you can make others people's life better. So in that sense, you have meaning, and you can still continue to go. So maybe that's also maybe a more simple sense of happiness or joy that is devoid of sorrow. Basically, I think that when I think about it, it's wanting to have a type of happiness that is more enduring, that is not just limited to having a scoop of ice cream, or buying a new car, or taking 2-day holiday once a year, or 4-day holiday once a year. It's something that is more sustainable, someone that has more meaning, something that can keep you going for a long time. So wishing others to have that, to have happiness that is devoid of sorrow. So these are kind of on a very surface level, the 4 immeasurables, right? So immeasurable equanimity first off, immeasurable love, immeasurable compassion, and immeasurable joy. And so what I thought of doing, so how long should I, up to me?
All night.
All night. Are you ready for an all-nighter? No. I don't think that I'm ready for an all-nighter. Oops. Sorry. I don't think that he's ready for an all-nighter. All right. So, any questions? Oh, wait. All right. Cool.
You've been saying that, talking about how we should be wishing that, nobody should be suffering. But at the same time, of what I understand, that we are suffering because of our own karma and our own, So how do you rationalize both or together?
I think that when you look at it from the perspective of, let's say, Tsongkhapa's teachings, and Tsongkhapa was one of the foremost Tibetan scholars. One of the texts that he composed is called The 3 Principal Aspects of the Path, where he presented the way to develop renunciation, or that determination to leave samsara. Then he presented bodhicitta, and finally he presented wisdom, the final view. And he said that if we don't, first of all, understand our own situation, in some sense, if we don't have compassion for ourselves, there's no way that we can have this consummate, impartial compassion to others. And this is sometimes what happens, often it's what happens to us. We'll look at others and we find them going through a deep or catastrophic sense of suffering. So we feel, the situation is so dire. May they be free from suffering. But we don't really relate it to what we are undergoing at the moment. And so Tsongkhapa said that first of all, we have to understand our own suffering. And to understand our own suffering is not just to look at simple levels of suffering that we might undergo in this life, but to look at the possibilities of suffering that exist for us out there. And so from a very, let's say, strict Buddhist point of view, we should be thinking of how it'd be like for me to be born, for example, as an animal. How would it be like for me to be born in a state in which I'm constantly fearing for my life? being chased, or how would it be like for me to be born into the meat industry, animal farming. And so when we try to think of what would be a day-to-day experience of that, sometimes we can become completely horrified in thinking that not only the physical pain would be so strong, but also my mind would be so limited. There's no way that I would be able to break free from that really unbearable type of suffering. And particularly, I think that when we, in India, for example, things are quite, they're more visible than, more out there in the open than, for example, living in Australia and so forth. In Australia, people buy meat or fish, they go to the supermarket and they buy something that is packaged quite nicely without really seeing where it comes from. I think that in India, to a great degree, it's more visible, and so kind of it's more relatable. So thinking of how would it be like for me to end up in that state? How would it be like for me to end up in a state that is called preta, in which there's this constant sense of thirst and hunger? How would it be like for me to be born in a hellish state of existence? How would it be for me to be born, for example, I had a conversation with you before the session. I grew up in Israel, so when I think of people from across the border, how would it be like for me to be in their shoes? Horrible. I don't want to have this kind of. If I were to be born in that state of existence, it would be absolutely unbearable. And so, if we don't start with first of all understanding kind of these great avenues for the experience of suffering with ourselves, our way of developing compassion to others would be quite limited. So it's an absolute necessary that we begin with that. But also, when we think of our life as human beings, we go through, first of all, birth. We don't remember the suffering of birth, but we can certainly relate to how it feels like when we get sick. How does it feel like to age? From a Buddhist perspective, the aging process starts straight after birth. It's pretty awkward to think of a baby kind of so nice and fresh and so much life in that, potential in that baby. The process of aging has already kicked in. Every moment that is passing, they're getting older and older and progressing in an uninterrupted way to the point of death. And so if we don't understand it in relation to ourselves, our way of developing compassion to others would be quite limited. But also often we don't, when we look at people that are doing quite well in our society, they have enough money, they look well, they have kind of functioning relationship, the family situation is good, the work situation is good. We don't really think of them as people that deserve compassion. But actually, for them, the process of aging, of sickness, of death, of meeting up with things that cause them displeasure, having to be separated from things that gives them pleasure, still happening. And at the end, they will die. And again, be born just like us in a state in which they will have no freedom. And so when we think of may everyone be happy, may they be free from suffering, we first of all think about it, we need to have thought about it in relation to ourselves. And then I think that we'll have a better way of then realizing what's happening for others. We are all in the same boat. Sometimes we are up, but then we go down. This is also, when we look at the different contemplations of sufferings that Rinpoche, Lama Tsongkhapa, offered in his writings. So one of the way of contemplating suffering is looking at the 6 steps of suffering, in which one of them is going from high to low. And it often speaks of going from higher state of rebirth to lower states of rebirth. But I think that we can also think about it just in our life, going from high to low and high to low and high to low. And we often think of compassion only in relation to the low point. But when there is a high point within a samsaric process, it is almost guaranteed that the low point will follow. And so it's with respect to ourselves, but also with respect to others. I don't know, I feel that kind of, am I making sense? All right. Have you got any other questions? Or?
Yeah, I have many questions.
So just a second. Yeah, thank you.
So I have a few questions, but I just start with one.
All right.
So the 4 immeasurable thoughts,
Yeah.
how do we arrive or find a way to get them achieved? Because it sounds interesting, sounds nice. I should do it. I should have it. But how do we go about getting that? Like from you explain, first we have to understand ourselves, but some people need help.
I think that how do we get them achieved? I think that when we look at the 4 immeasurable thoughts as kind of the end goals, we can think that it's so far away from me, from what I'm doing now. It's almost unachievable. But I think that it is, if we take small steps every day to remind ourselves of those 4 thoughts, and we begin just with saying the words. Now, there's a famous text that is called the 7-point mind training that says that first begin with words, train with words, say things, even if they are not together, mixed together with your right intention. If we start verbalizing them, just using words, at some point when we do it again and again, and we start also to bring our intention into them, there's some movement that will occur in the heart. It will accumulate in really small bits. Sometimes we try to evaluate a practice in short spans. Like, for example, we think that I've been meditating or contemplating the 4 immeasurables for 2 months now, but I don't feel that I've progressed. I've been doing it for a year or 2, but I don't think there is much movement in my heart. But I think that it's unfair to judge or to measure our success, so to speak, or progress in those small periods of time. We really need to think about it to evaluate the progress within 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and so forth. It takes so much time to develop or to change, to transform our mind, and to take the words and repeat them with a greater sense of intentionality over time, until our mind is becoming more loving mind, more compassionate mind, more equanimous mind, and so forth. So basically, it's a project that I think that will not only take for the rest of our life, but also, if we want to think about it in terms of future lifetimes, many future lifetimes to go. So if we don't become like, goal oriented, this is what I want to achieve, but rather to think of, this is what I want to do on a daily basis. And it doesn't have to be too holy. We can also remind ourselves of those 4 immeasurables, either in full, or sometimes just one of them, as we take a walk, as we sit for a few minutes. We can do it in small bits, but we can do it also in a full meditation session. So I think that if we kind of look at the process, look at the journey, people like to use the whole journey rather than the destination, I think that this is the way that they will be achieved in the future. Now, to achieve them, I don't think that I'm not sure that it is necessarily a state in which we have achieved them and therefore we have reached the goal and we don't need to do anything else on top of that. It's more of a process by which we continue to develop love and compassion to become completely unlimited, immeasurable love and immeasurable compassion. So if we continue to do that, they will just grow and increase.
Because you were saying that attachment is bad, okay? But if you're aiming to be happy, like that's a form of attachment, no?
And so when we look at the definition of attachment from a Buddhist perspective, not every wish or desire that we have is necessarily attachment. Attachment is necessarily involved with a certain sense of superimposition or exaggeration. So a certain thing in question, certain goal, an object, an idea, what we want to achieve has a certain portion of good qualities. But then the mind starts to exaggerate that. It thinks that it has maximum good qualities, 100% of good qualities. And if only I had that, I'd be able to be happy. Sometimes it is described as a drop of oil that is sipped in a piece of cloth that is so difficult to clean or to remove. And really, when we look at how a mind reacts to kind of this object of attachment, which it makes like in the mind, it becomes so wonderful, so amazing. This is kind of, that will give me long-lasting happiness and well-being. It's so difficult for our mind to really to break free from that object. So there's that sense of exaggeration. And so every attachment, every sense of attachment is necessarily involved with that superimposition, a sense of exaggeration. And when that occurs, we don't see faults or problems or things that can break apart in whatever we are attached to. And so we can have desires, we can have wishes. And like, for example, I want to be a good person. I want to become a Buddha. I want to become free from samsara. It's good wishes to have. I want to be of benefit to others. They are good wishes to have, but they're not involved with that sense of exaggeration, superimposition, that is superimposing qualities that are not there in reality. That's one thing. But also there are things in our life which we, you can say that we address them, we approach them with a sense of attachment. And they might be for the time being not that detrimental to us for the time being. There are greater sense of attachments that give us problems and suffering. So first of all, we start to address in time things which are more detrimental to us. So if we start with the drastic things and try to create some perspective and to reduce them, then we'll have more space then to deal with things that are more minute. But for the time being, if we think that if I need to rid myself of attachment, then I need to stop wanting everything, So like, for example, I'm in a relationship, so maybe I should stop being in a relationship. I have a house, I have a car, I have kids, I have a job, blah, blah, blah. I need to get rid of that because I'm attached to all of them. I think that it's going a little bit fanatic. So we don't need to be fanatic. We need to be kind of totally rational, because we're not in a position, we are not in a mental state which we can give them up. We cannot live in this life. I cannot live with that sense of security, with a sense of happiness, with a sense of pleasure. I need some of it to still get going. But there are things which are kind of, first of all, I need to address now. So I start with the things that are more pertinent now. And later on, I'll be able to reduce my attachment to things which are more simple. All right. And so maybe what we'll do now, I'm not going to go Lama Zopa Rinpoche on you today. Maybe what we can do is to finish our session for today with just thinking of the 4 immeasurables. So we're going to think about them bit by bit. And then at the end, we're going to do another round of 21 breaths as a shamatha practice, in which we will try to make those contemplations seep into our mind and get used to the attitudes of the 4 immeasurables. So if you want to join me, don't hold back. And so let's make sure that, again, we sit in a posture that works for us. It doesn't have to be rigid or uncomfortable. We will take a few seconds to calm our mind. And begin with immeasurable equanimity. In thinking of ourselves and others, may everyone all living beings that extend to the reaches of space, all around us. Be free from anger and attachment and indifference. May everyone treat each other with a sense of equanimity, equal care for everyone. So making a way, studying with the people here in this room, thinking that all of us are equal in wanting happiness, freedom from suffering. May we have that. And extending our mind to the neighbors of the Tushita Center. May they have that. And extending our mind to the people that live at Delhi. Millions of people. Some of us are close to our heart. Some of them are close to our heart. Millions of strangers. They are just like me, just like us, wanting happiness and meaning and freedom from pain and suffering and limitation. May they have that. And extending our mind to everyone in India. People from different religions, ethnicities, beliefs, languages, history. May everyone find happiness and well-being and freedom from pain and suffering. And extending our mind to the whole world. And thinking that throughout history, until the present day, conflicts, wars, all the harm that we visited upon each other, all of it was sourced and is sourced in anger, attachment, and ignorance, holding some as close and others as different and far. So thinking that it is irrational to hold on to this classification of friends, enemies, and strangers. For everyone is seeking happiness and well-being. Everyone just like me. And so we're thinking that we want to care for everyone equally, friends, enemies, and strangers. We wish everyone to have happiness and the causes of happiness. May everyone be able to live an ethical life abstaining from harming others. That is the cause for happiness. May everyone be able to open the mind and heart to love and compassion and wisdom, becoming generous and ethical and patient, to be enthused about developing such good qualities, having a mind that is focused with wisdom. These are causes for happiness. And may everyone be free from suffering, physical and mental pain, but more so, may they be free from the causes of suffering, anger, attachment, and ignorance. How amazing, how incredible it would be if everyone were to be free from anger, attachment, and ignorance. And may everyone, myself and others, have happiness that is not tainted by sorrow or pain. May we have joy that is free from suffering. And so we will finish our session with going through a round of 21 breaths. And all along trying in our heart to hold on to the four immeasurables, to create spaciousness in our heart for infinite equanimity, love, compassion, and joy. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for the people of Tushita, Delhi, all the people that participate in the running of the center, coming to the different activities of the center, here in person or online. You're helping promoting those teachings or keeping continuity of the teachings of the Buddha. So thank you very much for everyone who is contributing directly or indirectly for the continuing of those teachings. And have a nice and cool day.
Actually, you came at the right time in Delhi. It's unusually cool for the season.
I know. When I was before going to Australia 20 years ago, I had to stay in Delhi for a couple of months, and unfortunately, it was during May and June, and I was so out of money at the time. It was after having stayed in India for 4 years, so I burned through most of my savings. So I had to stay in a place that did not have air conditioning.
Oh.
And so I used to go and watch movies in air-conditioned theaters. And there was one day where I watched Kill Bill 3 times just to have air conditioning. And it was a great movie. And so, yeah, it's very hot in Delhi.
Thank you very much for your brilliant explanation on the 4 immeasurables. And hopefully we'll all be able to put it into practice. Yes. And thank you very much for accepting our invitation. And please accept this small token of appreciation from Tushita.
Thank you.
And please come again and again. It's like an ongoing invitation to come whenever you're in Delhi.
All right.
Please come and share Dharma with us.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
It's my first time here, but yeah, now I know where it is. Actually, I've been here before, but we'll continue to talk whenever I'm in Delhi.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hey, Ofira.